What is the creepiest thing that has happened to you, or a friend or family member, that creeps you out to this day? This isn't supernatural or anything, just good old human creepy. In the late 90s I went to a yard sale about 6 blocks from my house. I live in a fairly small town. I found this silver cigarette case that I thought would make me look stylish and uber sophisticated at the bar. I bought it for $2 from a guy that was at least 85 years old. I took it home and immediately dropped it on the sidewalk and dented one corner, but it was still good looking, so I used it for a while. After a couple bar trips it became a pain in the ass, as it only held 8 smokes, so I tossed it in a nightstand drawer and forgot about it. A few months later I saw another yard sale at the same place and stopped to look. I found a cigarette case just like the one I bought and picked it up. It not only had the same dented corner, but I opened it up and there was a cigarette that was my brand inside. For some reason I felt the need to buy it again for $2 from the same old geezer. When I got home the case was not in my nightstand. I will never forget the smile that old fucker gave me when I bought it the second time. That's unsettling. Did you ever see the old guy again? Saw him around town a few times. Never went back to his yard sales after I found out the first case wasn't in my nightstand. I delivered newspapers in a fairly rural area the summer after I graduated high school. One night, it's pouring rain and I'm driving down this dirt road that is a dead end to a farmer's house. I've been down this road a few dozen times and know the routine: drop the paper off in the box at the end of the drive, whip a shitty, back up the road and off to my next stop. This time, as I am getting out of my car to place the newspaper in the holder, I see this man in the ditch wearing a drenched white shirt running at me as fast as he can. He got within 20 feet of me. I could see what my mind pictured as a hatchet or axe. I had never ran so hard in my life. Edit, I ran back around the front of my car, jumped in and took off. Everything happened so fast that I almost didn't realize where I was. It must have been about 5 to 10 miles later that I attempted to call 911. No signal using my Motorola flip phone in the middle of nowhere in the year 2000. I had to stop at a farmer's house to call the police at 2 a.m. Turns out the guy killed himself within an hour of his run with me in that wooded ditch. I had not thought about that night in a long time. Kind of rattled nerves again thinking about it. I had a dog once that was super loyal and loving and would always come running to me when I called and would almost crash into me whenever I had treats for him. One day sitting in the living room, all of his hair stood up on his back and he was just staring over my shoulder growling and showing his teeth. No matter what I would do to try to get him to come to me, he would never break his stare at that one spot and just kept growling. I eventually carried him out of the room because it was freaking me and my roommates out so bad. Growing up there was an extra room upstairs in our house we used as an office. It had a closet with one of those tiny attic access doors on the side. We'd sometimes all be downstairs watching TV and we'd hear a creaking sound moving toward that room. The room was next to mine and sometimes I'd find the closet door open with the light on and the little door to the attic cracked open. There was a spot on the wall that our declawed cat would always attack. There was missing paint from the cat attacks. All of that was creepy, but the night the dog, who never came upstairs without my dad, started barking in the hallway by my room toward the office was the worst. She barked and growled for a bit, then she started backing off, into my room, while looking up as if staring at the face of a person coming toward her. She backed into my room, then squealed like she'd been stepped on and ran into the far corner from my door and put her nose and eyes into the corner and whimpered. I picked her up and went downstairs to sleep on the couch. That was 14 years ago and I'm still freaked out by it. I worked with a lady once who was pretty old, I'd say about 70 years old. Since our job was pretty boring, we talked a lot and she had all kinds of crazy stories. But this one creeps me out still. She said when her grandma died they had her buried in a wood box in the backyard, as was pretty custom in those days. Well, years later they have a family plot in a cemetery and decide to dig her grandma up to move her to the family plot. She said when they took the lid off the coffin, it had claw marks all over the inside. The grandma had apparently been buried alive. Before a lot of modern medical equipment such as heart monitors and even before a lot of modern medical knowledge regarding death and other states such as coma and unconsciousness, this sort of thing wasn't totally unheard of. It could be all too easy to mistake someone in a coma as being dead and bury them. There was even a case in France where someone had become drunk and was buried alive, with attempts to rescue him coming too late, as in his attempts to escape his skull hit the coffin side, fracturing his skull and killing him. Digs in some cemeteries have often shown multiple premature burials in one site, indicating such a thing was common. You can find many articles about them. Some of them are pretty horrific. It's the reason that in the 18th and 19th centuries particularly, There could be found examples of safety coffins which had built into them methods of allowing the buried person to alert someone as to them being alive. However, as far as can be told, no one was actually buried in one as an actual burial. Creepiest thing I remember ever happening to me didn't involve paranormal things. I was walking to the store late at night, probably around 11 to 1 a.m. don't remember, but the streets were isolated. I live in the Bronx in a not so safe area, but I've grown up around the not so nice people in this neighborhood all my life to not be afraid that anything will happen to me, since a lot of them actually look out for their neighbors. They still aren't nice people to others, but I digress. While I was walking, the streets were completely empty until I heard footsteps behind me. Being the cautious person that I am, I turn around to take a good look at the man for a long minute just in case I had to identify him later. Growing up in an unsafe place, this is typically my line of thinking. Being that I'm a short girl, 5'1", and this man was twice my height, I was a bit creeped out but kept walking like normal. After a while he caught up to me and asked if I was Dominican. I sternly said yes and kept walking. He then asked if I was 18. This was 3 years ago. At the time I was 17, and I replied no and was ready to cross the street because he was freaking me out. As soon as I said no, he looked at me disappointed and said, "Oh, never mind then," and ran away from me. It was such a small thing, but it really creeped me out thinking about what may have happened if I had told him I was 18 and what exactly this guy was planning. When I was 6, 28 years ago, my mom and dad took me and my younger sister to a MLB game, leaving my grandmother to babysit my youngest sister. When we got back, my grandmother told my folks that 2 guys had come by the house with photography equipment and asked whether a young girl with red curly hair lived there, and that they had spotted her and that she would be a great child model for some advertising work they were doing. When my grandmother said she wasn't home, they said they would come back another time. My grandmother and mom didn't think much about it, but my dad said something's not right here and called the police. 15 minutes later, several FBI agents showed up and began conducting interviews with my grandmother and my parents while I ran around and showed the agents my Matchbox police helicopter. Turns out we had been targeted by a child theft ring. The photographers would take a bunch of photos and wait until the toddler threw a tantrum, and the photographers would then ask the mother to go grab a toy to keep the child entertained. While the mother was out of the room, they would grab the child and bolt, leaving everything else behind. The FBI told my folks that my sister had already been sold and would have been out of the country within 24 hours if they got her. We were advised to change preschools and other aspects of our daily routine. It still gives me the chills to think about what could have happened to her. Needless to say, Mom became pretty overprotective. It was a few years before she even trusted us with a babysitter. Reminds me of a story. This happened just recently. A guy made a Craigslist posting saying he was a talent scout and ran an agency. He got the interest of a father, grandfather and his granddaughter. This guy's specialty was casting families, preferably children, under the guise that he was looking to produce a film and needed actors. Not too long ago, the grandfather and his granddaughter went to meet this guy up at the house. They actually drove by 2 hours early to check out the house before going to it. There was a for sale sign outside the house and it appeared vacant. The family drove by later at the agreed time of meeting in the morning, and were greeted at the door by a man in a suit. He tried to convince the little girl to come inside many times. The grandfather got a bad feeling and left. Turns out, in an unrelated sting, the police caught this guy for CP charges. He had 10 counts of CP, and his home was raided. The father/grandfather, around the same time, reported this incident to the police. When the police found this guy, he had a bag with him. In it was a knife, zip ties, sex toys, and he even had plastic sheeting. He was going to pretty much kill the grandfather, then abuse and murder the child. His plan was to get this all on film. The camera was set up and ready to go. Luckily, the father and grandfather had a gut feeling something was off and reported the incident. This guy happened to be a kid I pretty much grew up knowing for about 15 years. He was even my brother's roommate for a while. He was always very creepy and I couldn't never pinpoint why exactly. I felt my stomach drop reading this news. This guy has been inside my home, went to parties I had, my birthday party. I have had multiple conversations with him. Luckily, he won't be getting out of jail anytime soon. News story for further clarification. I've told this story before. When I was 15, my stepfather got stabbed right in front of me. There was an altercation in the middle of our street at 2 a.m. that woke our whole house up. My stepfather and my uncle were still up drinking and went outside to see what was going on. There was a young man kicking the shit out of one of our older neighbors, an alcoholic gentleman who lived a few houses down from us. Found out afterward the young man was dating the older man's daughter. My stepfather and uncle went out to break it up, and in the commotion, my stepfather was stabbed by the guy. He stumbled back onto the porch and fell, and I tried to catch him. His blood smeared down the front of my shirt. The younger guy took off and we called 911. We were in the hospital until the early morning. When me and my mom got home, there was a message on our answering machine. It was a friend of mine from school, crying and apologizing for calling in the middle of the night, but she had just had a dream that there was screaming and a fight and I was covered in blood. She begged me to call her back. The time stamp on the message was the same time as the stabbing. This is in the late 80s, before computers and even cell phones really. I lived on the other side of town from her. There was no way she could have known what had happened. Lived in the Hollywood Hills and this happened in the early 80s. Crazy knocking at my door at 9 p.m. I go to answer the door and there's a lady there just hysterical, talking about there's so much blood. She looks normal and is dressed in clean clothing, so we let her in. She tells a story about seeing someone get stabbed. I call the police, and 2 uniformed LAPD officers arrive in 10 minutes. They take the lady away, and tell us that she was reported missing, has a mental condition and lives up the street. All good. 30 minutes later, another knock at the door. 2 different cops this time, responding to the call. They have no idea who the other 2 cops were. Take our information and statements, description of the officers and the lady as well. Radio conversations back and forth ensue, and they really don't have any idea how any other cops could have picked her up, because they were given the call 40 minutes ago. Kidnapping attempt in the 1980s. Sacramento neighborhood late at night, visiting a friend when I was maybe 9 to 10 years old. 3 of us walk out to go play at this park, elementary school several blocks away at around 10 p.m. at night. We were playing frisbee in the street in front of the school and our frisbee lands in the street as a white van pulls up and stops, as if to allow us to get our frisbee. I walk toward the van and grab the frisbee, then move to the side to allow the van to pass. As the van passed, the sliding door opened and a guy dressed in black like a ninja came flying out and tried to grab me. He had a harness on and the van had been rigged with a telescoping mechanism that allowed him to come out around 5 feet while hanging from this harness, like they do in some haunted houses where people appear to be flying, and it was operated by another person inside, also dressed in black. So there was at least 3 people involved in this attempt. I barely dodged his attempt to grab me and all 3 of us ran toward the elementary school and hopped the fence, about 6 feet tall, ran along the fence through bushes and then hopped a second fence, about 15 maybe, that allowed us to be inside the school. We were scared as hell and could hear the van driving around and assumed they were in hot pursuit. We found a way to get onto the roof of the school from inside, thank God, and proceeded to observe the van driving around the school for at least 30 minutes in an obvious attempt to find us. This scared us even more because one would think the would-be kidnappers would flee, but I suppose they thought we could identify them. This was before cell phones, so we stayed up there until around 45 minutes after we last saw them. It appeared that some of them were searching for us on foot also, which added to the fear. We eventually escaped and went back to my friend's house, and never told anyone in our family out of fear of being punished. Creepiest thing will forever be the man who watched me at my window. It's nothing paranormal, but honestly. I was texting my girlfriend, playing a game, and I heard rustling outside my window. Keep in mind I live in the basement as an apartment at my mom's house. I don't have any curtains, and I turned off my iPod. I could see someone actually fucking staring at me. This went on for about 10 minutes. I texted my little sister to get the fucking bat, and turn on the lights upstairs. After he saw the lights, he ran off. I have never been more creeped out, except for the recent occurrence. Thought I imagined the whoosh and plop sound in the middle of the night. I brushed it off. Next morning, stepdad was cleaning the yard and found the AC cover in the other window well. I went upstairs to get ready to wash my mom's car when they told me. They asked me if I heard anything, so I told them. I keep a knife and an aluminum bat with me. For the people who will likely ask why we haven't called the police, we did the first time. They said they couldn't do anything. Short of breaking into the house, we're stuck dealing with this person, or people, until they do break in. Edit, to everyone saying I need to get a gun. I cannot legally obtain any firearms in the house due to the nature of my mental illness, BPD. While I am stable right now, everyone in my home and the state decided it would be best not to keep a gun in the house. So, I am keeping my knife, as I am still allowed to keep that, and my bat. My friend is probably going to hand over his BB gun for my use. I've posted this story before. When I lived in South Africa, I traveled a lot with a Christian missionary/humanitarian aid worker. He handled the spiritual stuff. I tended to work more with the local, mostly Xhosa, people, helping them with non-spiritual issues. In July 2010, we went to a village in the middle of nowhere. As soon as we stepped out the truck, we knew something was wrong. We hadn't been able to contact our guy in the village all day, and there was no one around at all. Pete and I went from house to house, looking for, well, anyone, but everywhere was completely empty. Eventually, we saw a figure run around the corner of a building on the far side of the village. It was a young woman, stark naked, running straight for us. Her arms were flailing, and she was running with like an animal, occasionally dropping to all fours, then back on her feet. As she got closer, Pete told me to get back in the truck, then he screamed at me to get in the truck. I'd seen this guy watch a Kosa witch doctor burn a dozen chickens alive and not bat an eyelid, so when he lost his shit, I knew it was serious. I closed the truck door as she reached us. She was covered in blood, there were cuts and slices all over her face, arms, and breasts. One of her ears was missing, I think. There was a lot of blood, her teeth were bloody, and she had a look in her eye of absolute, untamed rage. The screeching sound she made is unlike anything I've heard before or since. I can still hear it so vividly in my mind. Looking into her face, seeing her wide psychotic eyes and gaping mouth as she made that unholy sound froze me in my seat. Pete had started the truck, and already started reversing up the dirt track, but she followed. He turned the car, all the while she was scratching at the windows and metalwork, then sped off up the track. She followed us. She didn't keep up, obviously, but for a while I thought she was going to. I've never seen someone run that fast in bare feet. The journey back to our base town was almost silent. I spent most of it concentrating on the sound of my own breathing, and the rumble of the road. I asked Pete what that was, and what we should do. He said the girl was no doubt insane, had a psychotic break or something, but the locals would have immediately thought her possessed. If she didn't kill herself, the other villagers would within days. He suggested they had gathered in one house for safety. I saw a lot of fucked up shit in that country. TLDR, the Reavers from Firefly are real, and they live in rural South Africa. I have a story that didn't happen to me, but rather my friend's dad. This guy isn't the type to bullshit, so I believe him 100%. My friend's dad, we'll call him Jack, and his brother, we'll call him Tom, lived with each other in the 80s. It was just the two of them living in the house, no one else. So, this one night Jack is coming home at night and walks into his living room to see a bunch of old people sitting around talking. As he walks in, they all just quiet down and awkwardly look at him as he walks by. He doesn't see Tom anywhere, so he just assumes Tom will be back to tend to his guests. Jack has work the next morning, so he goes in his room to get some sleep, but is kept up from all the people talking. He walks out from his room and is promptly met up with Tom, who is coming out of his room to tell Jack to keep his friends quiet. However, Jack was coming out to tell Tom to keep his friends quiet. They walk out from the hallway into the living room only to see that it's empty with the leftover smell of musk. When I was 7 years old, my mom gave birth to my little sister. Me and my dad went to visit her in the hospital to check out the new family member. As 7-year-olds often do, I got bored, so my parents sent me to the kiosk right outside the main building to get an ice cream. As I was walking towards the kiosk, I cut over the lawn as it was a shorter walk. Suddenly I feel and hear a really heavy thud right behind me. I turn around to see the warped, mangled body of a man in a hospital gown maybe 40 to 50 centimeters from where I was standing. The man had jumped off the hospital roof after receiving news he had terminal cancer. My mom and a lot of the others in the birth ward even saw the guy flying past the windows. The guy basically just fell short of killing me with him. A group of doctors and psychiatrists asked me to get emergency therapy, but I insisted on getting my ice cream and go home. This day I can still recall the thud of the body hitting the ground and his body lying next to me, clear as crystal. I still tell this story sometimes, mostly when I'm drunk or high. I don't know why it comes up, but I think shit stuck with me. Edit. Hey guys. Seems like this was a popular story, so I'm going to answer some of your questions. I believe it was a pistachio cone ice cream, which is the freaking best. My parents were very considerate and really wanted me to talk to them or someone about it, but I feel like at the time the concept was too extreme for me to grasp and it felt scary and unnecessary for me to talk about. I mean, the guy was dead and I'm still alive, so I guess ice cream therapy was the way to go. I have talked to them about it in later years. To the guy doubting the story, my mother was still in the hospital and got told it was a suicide, not an accident, and it was related to the poor guy's bad news. As I explained, I cut over a lawn so it did not happen directly by the entrance. Believe me, I wish this was not a true story at all. I do not think I'm traumatized in a way that affects my life, but when you drink and do drug, stuff comes up and sometimes it feels good just talking about it in a sort of fuck yes I am alive fashion. I'm sorry if my wording and spelling is not top grade, as English is not my first language. Life rules. And I love my family smile. Just a few months ago, While I was still in school, I rented an old house with two of my friends. I lived in the basement and they each had a room upstairs. Several strange things happened to me while I was living in that basement. The first was that I had just gotten a dog and he was about 4 months old at the time. Now and then, right when I turned the TV off to go to sleep, my dog would start whining and growling at one corner of my room. He would usually not get on my bed because he wasn't allowed, but during these times, he would jump on my bed and get as close to me as he could, all without his eyes ever leaving that corner. This happened about 5 times over the course of 4 months. Then, toward the end of the school year, when I was about to move out, the scariest thing that has ever happened to me in my life occurred. Under our stairs was a little door that led to a small space that had a dirt floor. There was also a really weird, old wooden piece of what looks like a map nailed to the inside of the door, so it's a pretty spooky place. Up until the day before this incident, we had kept a small chair in front of this door that I laid my coats and things on, but we had some friends over the night before, so we brought that chair upstairs. It was dark, probably 8 p.m., and I had just been upstairs in the kitchen. I had just gotten off the stairs and was about to open the door to my room, when the door to the little closet under the stairs opened so slowly and with the loudest creak I've ever heard in my life. I stood rooted to the spot, frozen in fear, staring at the closet, waiting for whatever was about to come out of it. I literally stood there for about 5 minutes, absolutely terrified. Eventually, I opened the door to my room and locked it as fast as I could. I wasn't sure either of my roommates were home, so I called my female roommate and she was there. I spent the rest of that night upstairs with her, still too scared to go back downstairs. I should mention that I'm a 21-year-old man who does not scare easily. Now I know many of you will probably say it was the wind or the fact that I had just come down the stairs or something just as my roommates did, but I've had those things happen to me before and been kind of creeped out, but this was different. The second I heard that closet open, and looked over to see it opening so slowly, I felt this sheer terror. It honestly felt like there was someone or something else in the room with me that wanted me to see that door open. Edit: if this gets any significant number of upvotes, I'm going to have my female roommate, who still lives there, go down and take a picture of the basement and the little room under the stairs. Edit 4. The map has been confirmed as the northern part of Indiana, judging by the fact that you can clearly see Fort Wayne labeled on it. However, if anyone would like to offer up an explanation as to why there is a wooden road map nailed upside down to the inside of the door to the spooky closet under the stairs, I'm taking suggestions. My mother was almost killed by her stalker neighbor when she was younger. Cops suspect he was hiding in the house with a kitchen knife while she was in the house. Luckily she got a creeped out feeling and ran to her grandparents' house. Edit. Okay, so since people are asking for the story, I'm going to just copy/paste from when I told it before. Okay, so when my mom and a youngin', her and her mother lived in a trailer in the backyard of a family member's house. My mom was about 12 at the time that the man in the neighboring house started to stare at her from time to time. She got a creepy vibe from him but figured it was just a harmless lonely guy. One night when my mom was alone, she heard something on the roof of their trailer. Then she heard what sounded like footsteps slowly walking along the metal rooftop. Given they were dirt poor at the time, they did not have a phone, so she eventually ran out of the trailer and into the house without looking on the roof. When her uncle went outside to investigate, nothing was on the roof. A few weeks went by with no incidents and my mom figured she must have been overly scared of nothing. More fucked up stuff would randomly happen, but only when she was alone, and it was always spaced out a week or two. If I remember correctly, this occurred over maybe a couple months before it stopped completely. Months go by without any weird instances at all until one night my mom wakes up to the trailer unbelievably hot. She could feel the heater on full blast. She got out of bed and was about to go to the control for the trailer's heater, but she was overcome with a bad feeling and decided to just go into the house. The uncle went out to the trailer and noticed that the lock on the door was broken or messed with, and he looked inside quickly but didn't see anything. His wife made him call the police, and when they came out they searched the trailer and found one of the kitchen knives behind a chair next to the heating controller. They suspected that the neighbor went into the trailer, turned the heat up and crouched behind the chair waiting for my mom to come by, and then who knows. It's been a long time since I heard the story, but from what I remember the cops questioned the neighbor but really couldn't do anything about it. Luckily my mom and grandmother were able to move out of that town right after that. My mom told me that about 5 or something years later she was visiting other family who lived in a nearby town and she saw the neighbor at the grocery store and she bolted out before he saw her.